Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So they got the big bad wolf. They got him. The president is taking credit and victory laps, and all is well. It's the end, right? They're defeated. Maybe not. Maybe not. So now what? What's going to happen now? Personifying an organization like this with the leadership, it's not really a good idea. It is not a good idea. These organizations, like all organizations, they have structure. They have plans for a transfer of power. And meeting this kind of end in that field, it's predictable, you know. They know who the next guy in charge is going to be. They're not necessarily defeated simply because their command and control was disrupted. And that's what they did with this. That they took out the command structure, hopefully. When you're dealing with a conventional force, taking out the command structure is pretty much always a good idea. With an unconventional force, it's only a good idea if you know who's coming next. And sometimes disrupting the command and control, if you don't know who's coming next, is actually really, really bad for your side. I'll give you an example. Easter of 1916 was the beginning of the Irish Rebellion. And for American viewers, it's like July 4th, only the fighting started like right that second. At the end of that engagement, the British won, and they went through and they literally were like, that guy's a leader, that guy's a leader, that guy's a leader. And they took him and they put him on the wall. They got rid of him. They didn't know who was coming next. And it proved a big mistake for their side, because the next crop was very different. They were very, very different. The entire crop. But we're going to focus on two people because they're good examples of what we're going to be talking about here. You had a guy named De Valera and a guy named Collins. Those two are the examples we'll focus on. Now, if you're familiar with this story from the movie Michael Collins, De Valera is portrayed as this whiny, sniveling guy in that. And whatever, maybe that's historically accurate. But he was politically savvy. Extremely politically savvy. And it doesn't really show that except in bad light in the movie. Collins was a military juggernaut. They didn't like each other. And this holds true through almost every type of organization like this. You have these two competing groups of people in command. So what happened once that crop took over, and there were a whole bunch of other people, 1921, the British were asking for a truce, and the Irish Free State was born. It didn't take long under this new leadership, and a wave of unconventional warfare. So drawing on lessons like that and learning from lessons like that, the current theory is to only eliminate one half. You only get rid of one half of them. You get rid of the Collins side, people that were like him. You leave the De Valeras alone. Even if you have the opportunity, you let them go. Now, the reason you do this is because it leaves the organization intact, but combat ineffective. They don't have the military minds. But the organization is still there, so people who are sympathetic to the cause, they look and they're like, I want to join that organization. And the opposition, they're already looking at it. You're already looking at this group, so when the new people show up, they're going through them. Okay, this guy went to college. He's mad at his dad, wants an adventure. Don't need to worry about him. This guy spent 6 years in the army and 2 years in prison. This one's got to go. And then that guy gets taken out. And if you do this long enough, the whole organization moves because the politically savvy people realize their military operations are always failures because they only have incompetent commanders. So their only option is peace. And it brings them to the negotiation table. There are a lot of organizations that have been altered in this way. They've been realigned. There is a lot of evidence to suggest that is what the U.S. was doing, was attempting to do. There have been a lot of not huge names, but pretty big names that have met similar ends recently. And the president's own comment, he kind of said it offhand, we've taken out other terrorists, but no big names. He was kept in the loop and up to date on these because they were part of the overall strategy. But nobody really probably took the time to explain it to him because they're worried he would say it or they just didn't think he'd understand it. So there is evidence to suggest that's what was going on. Now, we've also found out that the operation against this guy was moved up. It was done ahead of schedule. It was done hastily because of the president's withdrawal. They had to do it like right now, rather than waiting for the time they wanted. So that leaves us with the question, how far did they get in cleaning house? If they got all the way, then this is a win. This is a win, and we're not going to see much more from these guys. If not, well, there's a lot of variables at play. So let's go through the three options of what can happen next. If they were successful and they took out the competent commanders before they got this guy, we're going to see a whole lot of talk, a whole lot of videos, and some minor operations that aren't going to do too well. They probably won't even make the news here. They're not going to be big events. If they only got partially through, only got like halfway done, you're going to see infighting. You're going to start seeing these groups fight inside each other. And you'll see the Collins guys realizing now that they're outnumbered by the politically savvy guys, they're going to start taking them out. Because normally the politically savvy guys are also very corruptible. They're not true believers. They are not liked by the competent military commanders. So they'll start trying to even the odds. Now, where you have to worry is if they take out all of them. If they get rid of all of the politically savvy people, you have an incredibly dangerous organization. You have a group that is now staffed and led by nothing but competent military commanders and nobody to hold them back. They become a very efficient machine. That's the worst case scenario. Now, let's just say they didn't get his chosen successor. We're going to see a spectacular response. Some kind of coordinated statement. Some kind of activity that is going to probably result in a lot of casualties. And it's a way of saying, we're still here. You didn't defeat us. So, those are the three future outcomes. And based on that, we'll be able to tell how far they got in this strategy. So there you go. That's what we're looking at now as far as the future of this group. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.